The yucca moth and the chaparral yucca are distinct species of the sage scrub habitat of Mission Trails Regional Park. The anatomy of the yucca moth consists of unique physical features that are vital to its symbiotic relationship with the chaparral yucca. The female yucca moth contains tentacles near the front of her head that allows her to collect pollen from the anthers of the yucca flower. Once the pollen is collected, she uses her tentacles and forelegs to compress the pollen and store it under its head. Because of the pollen stickiness, it attaches well onto the moth and allows the moth to move its tentacles freely during oviposition. The ovipositor is located on the lower abdomen of the yucca moth and is used for depositing eggs into the ovary of the yucca flower. The ovipositor's long and sharp structure is very useful in piercing through the ovary and laying her eggs. The yucca moth and the chaparral yucca both benefit from pollination and oviparity, the depositing of eggs. During spring evenings, yucca flowers are in full bloom and the female moths are ready to deposit their eggs. However, before they do so, they explicitly collect pollen from the anthers of a yucca flower to later pollinate another flower. After collecting pollen, they look for an ovary to lay their eggs in. When looking for the right place, they avoid flowers with chemical traces left by other yucca moths, which informs them the flower is already occupied. Once the moth has found the perfect place to lay her eggs, she flies to the ovary of the flower, facing her ovipositor towards the ovary and her head towards the stigma. Then, she thrusts the ovipositor into the ovary and lays some eggs on the ovary wall. Following oviposition, she pollinates the flower by transferring pollen to the stigma of the flower to ensure the production of fruits and seeds for the larvae until they are ready to leave the flower and pupate in the ground. The chaparral yucca's habitat, sage scrub, has been recently getting insufficient rainfall due to the recent wildfires and dry climate. This will prevent them from blossoming in the spring and remain dormant until the next season. Secondary succession in the sage scrub plant community is heavily influenced by the disturbance of wildfires. Secondary succession is the change and regrowth of an existing plant community and is a result of an event, such as a fire, that diminishes the existing habitat and its inhabitants. Herbaceous plants in sage scrub, such as the San Diego sunflower, are some of the first ones to quickly return after a fire. This sunflower has adapted to this type of environment by becoming both fire resilient and drought tolerant. Being herbaceous and small, these sunflowers are pioneers in disturbed environments. The topography of the sage scrub habitat affects its vegetation, providing different resources for plants on different slopes. Compared to plants on a southern slope, northern plants are larger. They have more access to water, which gives them supplementary nutrients from the soil since they have reduced exposure to sunlight. Plants on a south-facing slope, such as the laurel sumac, evolve certain adaptations for retarding water loss, including leaves that fold up during dry weather. This helps them conserve water. In conclusion, the sage scrub habitat remains a healthy home for a range of diverse species, giving them the resources they need to survive.